The ruins of the city were silent, only broken by the crack of falling stones and the distant sound of burning walls. Dust hung in the air like a heavy curtain, making every breath sharp and dry. In the middle of the wreckage, a young human soldier named Daniel walked carefully, his boots crunching on broken glass and stone. He had seen battles before, but something about this place felt different, almost alive, as if the ruins themselves were watching. Suddenly, a sound cut through the silence. It was not gunfire, not an explosion, not even the cry of another soldier. It was soft, strange, almost like a cat purring, yet deeper. The sound rolled out gently. A grrr. Daniel froze, his eyes searching the shadows between the ruined buildings. The sound came again, closer this time. A grrr. He raised his weapon, his heart beating faster. Was it a trap? Was it an alien signal? Or maybe some kind of code? He did not know. From behind a fallen wall, she appeared, an alien girl with skin the color of deep blue midnight, shining faintly even in the dust-filled light. Her hair was long and silver blue, flowing like liquid silk down her back. Her eyes glowed softly, not threatening, but strange enough to make Daniel's breath stop. She looked young, beautiful, and mysterious, and her lips curled into a small, playful smile. Again, she made the sound a grrr, her voice soft but deliberate. Daniel blinked, lowering his weapon just slightly. What? What was that? He asked. The alien tilted her head, her ears twitching slightly, as if she could hear things humans never could. She did not answer. She only smiled again. Daniel felt a mix of fear and curiosity. He had trained for war, for enemies, for survival. But no training had prepared him for this, an alien girl sitting calmly in the ruins, making a sound he could not understand. His instincts told him to move back, to call for backup. But something in her glowing eyes held him in place. She stepped closer, moving with a grace that did not belong in a battlefield. Her feet touched the broken ground, as if it were soft sand. Her body language was calm, almost inviting. Yet her presence carried mystery and danger. A grrr, she purred again, louder this time, as if she wanted him to remember it. Daniel shook his head. I don't know what you mean, he whispered, his voice trembling. The alien girl only gave a quiet laugh, light and musical. She placed her hand gently over her chest and repeated the sound once more. A grrr. The sound echoed in Daniel's mind. It was not just a noise, it felt heavy, layered, carrying some kind of secret meaning. But what meaning? Was it a warning? A greeting? A threat? He could not tell, and that uncertainty made his pulse race. Behind them, the ruins groaned as another building half collapsed, sending dust clouds into the air. Daniel glanced around nervously, but when he looked back at her, she was still there, calm and glowing, as if destruction around her did not matter. The soldiers on his comms were silent. He was alone with her. He wanted to ask again, but his words stuck in his throat. The alien girl's smile faded slightly, replaced by something else, something deeper. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment Daniel felt as if she was trying to tell him something urgent, without words. His hand tightened on his weapon, but inside, his heart tightened on the mystery she brought. A grrr, she said again, softer now, almost a whisper. And then she turned away, walking toward the deeper ruins, her long hair catching the faint light. Daniel stood frozen, torn between duty and curiosity. Was this a trap leading him to danger, or was it the beginning of something greater than he could imagine? He took a step forward, his instincts screaming to stop, but his curiosity pulling him along. Every sound of his boots echoed loudly in the silence. The alien girl did not look back, but he could still hear her voice in his mind, that strange purr. It pulled him like a string, deeper into the ruins, deeper into mystery. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt fear not of death, but of the unknown. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" But only the ruins answered, shaking softly in the wind. The alien girl disappeared behind a wall, leaving only the memory of her voice behind. And Daniel knew his life had just changed. The meaning of a grrr might be nothing, or it might be everything. Either way, he had to find out. And the search for that meaning had only begun. Daniel followed the sound of her steps through the broken ruins. Every corner he turned made the dust rise and sting his eyes. But still, he walked forward, pulled by something he could not explain. The strange words she spoke, that purring a grrr, echoed in his head like a drumbeat. He wanted to believe it was meaningless, some alien way of teasing or mocking, but his gut told him it was more. He stopped at a shattered archway. Scanning the shadows, there she was, standing on a pile of fallen stones, her figure tall against the broken sky. Her silver blue hair shimmered in the pale light, and her glowing eyes watched him closely. When she saw him, her lips curved into that same playful smile, and once again, she purred a grrr. Daniel clenched his jaw. "What are you trying to say?" he asked firmly, though his voice trembled, just enough to betray him. The alien girl tilted her head like a curious child, but still gave no answer, only repeating the same sound again, softer, a grrr. It felt almost like a riddle, a word without meaning, a sound without sense, but spoken with a weight that made his heart race. He lowered his weapon slightly and tried a different approach. "Is it your name?" he asked, pointing at her. The girl blinked once, her ears twitching, then shook her head slowly, her hair glimmering in the light. "No," he muttered, confused. "Then what?" But again, she only smiled, repeating the sound once more, a grrr. The ruins around them groaned with the weight of silence. Far in the distance, a group of human soldiers were shouting, their voices faint in the wind. Daniel thought of calling them, but some part of him hesitated. He did not want to share this moment, not yet. It was as if this mystery was meant for him alone. The girl sat down on a broken stone and traced her finger across the dust, drawing symbols Daniel did not understand. He crouched nearby, watching carefully, hoping for a clue. The shapes looked like spirals, circles, and sharp lines crossing through each other. To him, they were just marks, but the way she drew them felt deliberate, almost ritual-like. After finishing, she tapped the symbol and purred again. A grrr. Daniel frowned, his frustration rising. "It doesn't mean anything," he whispered under his breath. "You're just playing with me." But when he looked at her face, he saw no mockery. Instead, her glowing eyes held a kind of sadness, as if she wanted him to understand, but knew he couldn't. The air grew colder as the wind picked up, carrying the sound of falling metal and shifting rubble. Daniel's hand tightened on his weapon again, not against her, but against the unknown. He hated the feeling of not knowing, of being lost in a puzzle without an answer, and yet, deep inside, he knew the mystery of her word was more important than any order or mission. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the distance. Daniel's instincts snapped to attention. His weapon aimed toward the movement, but before he could react further, the alien girl stood and placed her hand gently on his arm. Her touch was cool, but calming. She shook her head slowly, her lips parting with the same word, whispered this time, a grrr. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to demand answers, but something about the way she spoke this time made him stop. Her voice was not playful, now it was serious, almost warning him of something unseen. The sound lingered in the air like an echo that would not fade. His soldier instincts screamed that there was danger, but his mind could not connect the pieces. The girl turned, stepping lightly across the rubble, moving deeper into the ruins again. Her tail flicked behind her like a banner, her steps sure and graceful. Daniel hesitated only a second before following. He had to know the truth, even if it was hidden behind riddles and strange sounds. They moved through a half-collapsed corridor, the walls cracked and leaning as if ready to fall. Daniel could hear faint humming machines maybe, buried under the rubble. The alien girl stopped suddenly, pressing her ear against the wall. Her eyes closed, and once more, her lips moved, a grrr. It was quieter than before, but filled with intent. Daniel realized then that this was not a meaningless word at all. It was something else. Something hidden. She looked at him, her eyes glowing brighter than ever, and for a moment he felt like she was pleading for him to understand. He opened his mouth to ask, but before he could, a loud crash echoed behind them. The ground shook as part of the building gave way. Stone and dust falling in heavy waves. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her away just in time. They stumbled together into the open street, coughing in the rising cloud of dirt. When the dust cleared, Daniel saw shadows moving among the ruins. Figures, tall and armored, with glowing red eyes. His blood went cold. They were not human, and they were not friendly. The alien girl's voice cut through his fear, sharper now, louder, her word like a signal, a Grrr. And in that moment, Daniel understood one thing clearly. This sound was not meaningless, it was a warning, and the real danger had just arrived. The shadows moved closer, their red eyes glowing through the dust like burning coals. Daniel's grip on his weapon tightened, sweat rolling down his temple. The alien girl stood beside him, her glowing skin reflecting the faint light, her body tense but strangely calm. She repeated the sound again, this time firm, commanding, a Grrr. The word echoed through the ruins, and the figures stopped for a moment, as if they recognized it. Daniel's heart pounded. He whispered, who are they? What do they want? The alien girl gave no answer, only motioned for him to stay low. Her silver blue hair fell forward as she crouched, her eyes glowing like a predator in the night. Daniel followed her lead, pressing himself against the broken stone wall. The figures moved slowly, scanning the ruins, their armor humming with strange energy. They carried weapons, sharp and alien, glowing faintly like blades of light. For a moment, Daniel thought they hadn't seen them, but then one of the red-eyed creatures stopped and sniffed the air. Turning its head toward their hiding place, Daniel's breath caught in his chest, his finger ready on the trigger. The alien girl grabbed his wrist, her touch firm, shaking. Her head, she whispered the word again, softer, a Grrr. Her eyes locked onto his, and though he did not understand her language, he knew what she meant. Wait, the creature stepped closer, its heavy boots crunching over broken glass. Daniel could hear the strange rhythm of its breathing, rough and mechanical. Every instinct told him to fire. But the alien girl held his arm tight. Then just as the creature was about to reach their corner, another voice called out in a guttural alien tongue. The creature stopped, growled, and turned back, following the others deeper into the ruins. Daniel let out the breath he had been holding, his chest rising and falling rapidly. When the danger passed, he turned to her quickly, whispering harshly, "What was that sound? Why do you keep saying it?" The alien girl placed her hand on his chest, feeling his rapid heartbeat. Her face softened, and once more she said, "A Grrr." Daniel's frustration grew. "I don't understand. What does it mean?" She closed her eyes for a moment, then drew another symbol in the dust, a circle with 3 sharp lines cutting through it. She tapped the symbol, pointed at the shadows, and whispered again, "A Grrr." Daniel stared at the drawing, then at her. Slowly, he began to piece it together. The sound was not random, not meaningless. It was connected to them, the red-eyed creatures. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe even their name, whatever it was. It had power. He could see it in the way the alien girl used it, like a signal between life and death. The night grew darker, the ruined city turning into a maze of shadows. Daniel followed the alien girl as she moved. Silently through broken streets, every few steps, she stopped, listening carefully, her ears twitching like a hunter's. Every time she sensed danger, she whispered the word, "A Grrr," and each time, it saved them from being seen. It was as if the sound itself carried weight, a warning that even the enemy understood. Daniel's thoughts raced as they found cover in the remains of an old tower. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard, his weapon heavy in his hands. The alien girl sat across from him, her glowing skin casting a faint light in the darkness. For the first time, He noticed the weariness in her eyes. She was young, beautiful, but clearly burdened with secrets he could not yet grasp. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. "You're trying to protect me, aren't you?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and again she whispered a grrr. The word haunted him now. He replayed it in his mind. The way she spoke, it sometimes soft, sometimes sharp, sometimes urgent. It was more than a sound. It was a message, a language beyond translation, and slowly, Daniel began to realize something terrifying. If she was warning him, then the danger was not over. It was only beginning. Suddenly, the tower shook, a blast echoing through the city. The floor cracked beneath them as debris rained down. Daniel pulled her to the ground as chunks of stone crashed around them. The alien girl clung to him, her voice trembling for the first time as she shouted, "A grrr." It was the loudest she had ever said it, filled with fear and urgency. Daniel's heart froze. This was no simple word. It was a cry, a signal that death was near. Through the smoke, he saw them again, the red-eyed creatures swarming like shadows, brought to life, their weapons glowing, their steps shaking the earth. Daniel raised his rifle, his hand steady despite his pounding heart. The alien girl moved beside him, her glowing eyes fierce now, no longer playful. She whispered the word once more, her voice steady this time, "A grrr." Daniel finally understood this was not just her warning, it was her way of telling him, "Stand ready." The ruins roared with the sound of approaching enemies. The night air was filled with tension, and the strange word no longer felt meaningless. It was a thread tying them together, a secret language in the middle of war. Daniel knew that if he wanted to survive, he had to trust her, trust the sound, trust the warning, trust the alien girl. As the first of the creatures broke through the rubble, Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. The alien girl stood beside him, her voice soft but powerful as she repeated the sound once more. A grrr, and in that single sound, Daniel heard everything: danger, warning, and a promise. The battle for their survival had just begun. The night air was filled with smoke and tension. Daniel stood with his weapon raised, his heart pounding. As the red-eyed creatures moved closer, beside him, the alien girl repeated the strange word once again, her voice low but steady, "A grrr," to Daniel. It no longer sounded playful or confusing. It sounded like a code, a warning, maybe even a command. The first creature leaped forward, its glowing weapon cutting the air like fire. Daniel fired, the shot echoing through the ruins. The enemy staggered back but did not fall. Another rushed in, and Daniel barely dodged the strike, his muscles burning with the effort. The alien girl moved quickly, her body flowing with impossible grace, her hand glowing faintly as she struck the creature across the chest. The thing screamed, sparks flying from its armor, and collapsed. Daniel blinked in shock. "You can fight." The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes burning with determination. She did not answer with words, only repeated the sound, "A grrr." This time she pointed at the fallen enemy. Then at the shadows still moving in the distance, Daniel realized the truth. This was no random noise, no meaningless purr. It was a message, a word tied to the creatures themselves. They moved together through the crumbling streets, every corner filled with danger. Daniel found himself listening for her voice more than his own instincts. Every time she whispered a grrr, it guided him, saved him, kept him alive. Slowly, he began to see the pattern. When her voice was sharp and quick, the danger was near. When it was soft, it meant they had time to move quietly. It was a code, a secret message built into a single sound. At last, they found a moment of silence. In the shell of an old building, the walls were cracked, the ceiling half gone. But it gave them shelter from the night. Daniel leaned against the stone, exhausted, his weapon heavy in his hands. The alien girl sat across from him, her glowing skin faintly lighting the room. For a moment, the world outside felt far away. Daniel looked at her carefully, trying to find words. "You've been warning me all along," haven't you?" he whispered. She tilted her head, her silver blue hair falling forward, and gave him a small smile. Her lips moved again. A grrr. Daniel rubbed his forehead, frustration mixing with respect. "I still don't know what it means, but I think I'm starting to understand how you use it." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she reached out and touched his hand gently. Her fingers were cool, her touch calming. She whispered again, but slower this time, as if teaching him. "A grrr." Daniel repeated it under his breath, the sound awkward on his tongue. She laughed softly, the sound like music, and nodded. He felt embarrassed, but also strangely connected to her. The ground rumbled suddenly, shaking dust from the ceiling. Daniel's hand shot to his weapon, but the alien girl held up her hand. She listened, her ears twitching slightly, then whispered the sound again, a grrr. But this time she pointed downward. Daniel frowned, then realized she wasn't warning about enemies above. They were below. Something was moving under. The ruins. Something bigger. He felt his stomach twist. They crept to a cracked opening in the floor. Daniel peered down into the darkness, his eyes straining. At first he saw nothing, but then a faint red glow moved in the tunnels below. Dozens of the creatures, crawling through the underground like insects. Daniel's throat went dry. "There are so many," he whispered. The alien girl leaned close, her voice barely more than a breath. A grrr. This time, Daniel understood danger multiplied. They had to move before the swarm rose to the surface. They ran through the ruins, their steps quiet but urgent. Daniel kept hearing her word, guiding him. A grrr here, a grrr there. Each time pointing toward safety. It was like following a compass, but the compass was alive, beautiful, and glowing at his side, for the first time. Daniel felt that they were not just surviving, they were communicating. Even if he did not fully understand, he trusted her, and trust in a battlefield was worth more than any weapon. They reached the edge of the city ruins, just as the ground split open behind them. A wave of the red-eyed creatures burst from the tunnels, their growls filling the air. Daniel aimed and fired, the recoil sharp against his shoulder. The alien girl raised her glowing hand again, striking another enemy with a burst of strange light. Together, they fought, back to back. The night alive with fire and screams, and through it all, her voice carried the same word, the same code, a grrr. By the time the last creature fell, the ruins were silent once more. Daniel's chest heaved, his body aching, but he was alive. He looked at her, and she was watching him, her eyes glowing softly, her breath quick but steady. For a moment, the world around them disappeared, leaving only the two of them and the strange word that had saved his life. Again and again, Daniel lowered his weapon, stepping closer. "You've been telling me something more, haven't you?" he asked softly. The alien girl did not speak right away. Instead, she touched his chest again, right over his heart, her glowing eyes locking with his. When she finally whispered the word, it was not a warning, not a command, not a code. It was gentle, almost tender, a grrr. Daniel felt a chill run through him. The sound had meaning more than one, and part of that meaning was about him. The ruins were quiet again, but Daniel knew the silence would not last. Every shadow felt alive, every broken wall seemed to hold secrets. The alien girl stood close, her glowing skin faint in the darkness, her silver blue hair catching the weak light. Daniel could still hear her word in his mind. That strange sound she whispered again and again, a grrr. Until now, he thought, it was just a warning. But something about the way she said it last time felt different. It was softer, almost like she was saying it to him. Not about the danger. The double meaning twisted in his thoughts, leaving him unsettled but curious. Why would one sound carry both warning and something more, something personal? The ground shook again, a faint tremor that rolled under their feet. Daniel froze, scanning the ruins with sharp eyes. The alien girl lowered herself to the ground, pressing her ear to the stone. Her glowing eyes widened slightly, and she whispered the sound once more, urgent this time. A grrr. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He knew this one danger was close. From the distance, the night filled with a low hum. Mechanical and unnatural, Daniel looked over the broken walls and saw lights moving in the distance. Not torches, not fires machines, huge armored carriers rolling across the ruined streets, their weapons glowing faintly in the dark. The red-eyed creatures marched beside them, hundreds of them. Daniel's stomach turned. This was no patrol, this was an army. The alien girl touched his arm and pointed to the horizon. Her expression was serious, her lips moving again. A grrr. Daniel understood. This was the coming danger, something far worse than before. We can't fight them, he muttered, his voice low but steady. There's too many. She nodded slowly, her glowing eyes never leaving his. For the first time, Daniel saw fear in her, but behind that fear was something else, determination. They moved quickly through the ruins, slipping between shadows and broken streets. The sound of marching filled the air, the army growing closer with every passing second. Daniel's mind raced. He thought of his squad, his base, the others who had no idea what was coming. If he didn't get word to them, the army would wipe them all out before dawn. He turned to the alien girl, whispering urgently, "We need to warn my people." She tilted her head, then slowly placed her hand over her chest, whispering again, "A grrr." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean? What does it mean this time?" Her eyes softened, and though he still did not fully understand, he knew she was trying to tell him this danger was even greater than he thought. They climbed a collapsed tower, the stones crumbling under their boots. From the top, the view stretched across the ruined city. Daniel's breath caught when he saw it clearly. The entire horizon was alive with movement. Dozens of carriers, thousands of red-eyed creatures, all moving like a tide of death. His throat went dry. "This isn't just an army," he whispered. "This is an invasion." The alien girl stood beside him, her glowing skin shining faintly against the night. Her lips moved once more, the word leaving her like a promise and a curse. A grrr. Daniel's fists clenched. "You knew about this, didn't you? That's why you kept warning me." She did not answer, only watched the marching army with sad eyes. Daniel wanted to be angry, but he couldn't, without her warnings. He would already be dead, and now, because of her, he knew the truth. The coming danger was not just a battle, it was a war. They climbed down quickly and found shelter in an old underground passage. The air was damp and heavy, the stone walls covered in cracks. Daniel lit a small light from his pack, the glow weak but steady. The alien girl sat across from him, her body tired, her eyes still glowing. He leaned forward, his voice low. "If I don't warn my people, they'll be destroyed." She tilted her head again, then whispered the word softly. A grrr. Daniel's frustration boiled over. "I don't need riddles. I need answers." But the moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. The alien girl lowered her gaze, her expression wounded. She placed her hand on the ground, drawing another symbol in the dust. This time it was different, to circles, side by side, joined by a single line. She tapped one circle, then pointed at him. She tapped the other, then pointed at herself. And then, softly, she whispered, "A grrr." Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time, he felt the weight of her message. The word wasn't only about danger. It wasn't only about warning. It was about connection. About two lives bound together, his and hers. And now, the coming danger threatened them both. The rumble of the marching army grew louder, shaking the passage around them. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the sound of alien voices echoed through the tunnels. Daniel grabbed his weapon and looked at her. Her eyes glowed brighter, her voice strong this time, filled with power. A grrr. Daniel nodded, his fear turning to determination. He finally understood one thing clearly. This word was more than a warning. It was a message that bound their fates together. The army was coming, and the night was about to break into fire. But Daniel knew he would not face it alone. The alien girl was with him, and her strange word had become his shield. As the walls trembled and the danger closed in, her voice whispered once more, steady and strong, a grrr. And Daniel knew the coming storm would test them both, but together they had a chance. Asterisk. The tunnels shook as the sound of the marching army passed overhead. Daniel held his breath, every nerve in his body on edge. The alien girl sat close beside him, her glowing skin casting a faint light across the damp stone. For the first time since meeting her, Daniel felt a strange calm, as if her presence itself pushed back the fear. She whispered softly again, the word that had followed him since the ruins, a grrr. Daniel closed his eyes, letting the sound sink into him. It no longer felt foreign, no longer felt like nonsense. It was becoming familiar, almost comforting. He turned to her, whispering, "You've saved my life more than once tonight." She tilted her head, her silver blue hair falling across her glowing eyes, and gave a small smile. Daniel felt his chest tighten, not with fear, but with something he could not name. He didn't fully understand her, yet he trusted her completely. That trust felt strange, dangerous, but also unshakable. The noise above faded, replaced by silence. Daniel finally lowered his weapon, his hands trembling from exhaustion. He sat against the wall, his heart still racing. The alien girl moved closer, sitting only a breath away. For a moment, they simply listened to the quiet, broken only by the faint dripping of water in the tunnel. Daniel glanced at her hand, resting gently on the stone beside his. Slowly, carefully, he reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. Her skin was cool, but smooth, and she did not pull away. Instead, her glowing eyes lifted to meet his. "A grrr," she whispered again, softer than ever. This time Daniel knew it wasn't a warning. It was something else entirely. He swallowed hard, his voice quiet. "You mean me, don't you?" She did not answer in words, but her smile widened, and her fingers curled around his. In that small gesture, Daniel felt a bond forming, fragile yet strong. He realized then that the word was not only a code or a warning, it was a bridge between them, a way for her to reach him when no other words could. The tunnel trembled again, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel's soldier instincts kicked back in, but the girl shook her head, placing her hand gently against his chest. Her glowing eyes told him everything. "Don't be afraid. Not yet." She leaned closer, her forehead brushing lightly against his. Her voice came once more, steady and warm. "A grrr." Daniel closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt peace in the middle of war. Hours passed in uneasy silence. When dawn's light finally reached the cracks in the ruined city above, Daniel and the girl emerged from the tunnels. The air was colder now, the sky heavy with smoke. The army had moved on, but their trail was clear ruined streets, burning rubble, and silence where life once was. Daniel scanned the horizon, his heart heavy. He knew he had to get back to his people, to warn them, but when he looked at her, he realized he did not want to leave her behind. She walked beside him as if she already knew his thoughts. Every step they took together made the bond between them stronger. Her glowing eyes searched his face with a strange softness, as if she was trying to read him the way he tried to read her. Daniel wanted to speak, to tell her what he felt, but no words seemed enough. And then, as if sensing his struggle, she whispered again, "A grrr." The single sound carried everything: trust, warning, and something deeper. It was her way of saying what she could not put into human words. They reached a ridge overlooking the valley beyond the ruins. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Far below, the army stretched for miles, red eyes glowing in the shadow of the carriers. It was worse than he feared. His people had no idea what was coming. He turned to the alien girl, his voice heavy. "If I don't warn them, everyone I know will die." She placed her hand gently over his, whispering once more, "A grrr." Daniel understood. She was telling him he would not face it alone. For the first time, Daniel smiled, despite the danger. "You're with me," he said softly. Her glowing eyes brightened, and she nodded once, firmly. In that moment, Daniel realized their bond was not just survival, it was something greater. A connection formed in fire and fear, and it was that bond that gave him the strength to face what was coming. As the sun rose weakly through the smoke, Daniel and the alien girl stood side by side. Their world was about to fall into war, but they had found each other. Her voice broke the silence one last time, steady and filled with meaning. A grrr. Daniel's chest ached, but his spirit was stronger than ever. Whatever the word truly meant, he knew it carried her trust, her warning, and her heart, and that was enough to make him believe they could survive what was to come. The valley below burned with the red glow of the marching army. Daniel stood at the ridge, his breath heavy, his weapon gripped tight. Beside him, the alien girl gazed at the endless tide of enemies, her silver blue hair moving gently in the cold wind. Her glowing eyes held no fear, only resolve. Once again, she whispered the word that had followed him since the night they met. A grrr. Daniel turned to her, his voice low but urgent. "I have to warn my people." She nodded slowly, then placed her hand over her chest, whispering the same sound. Again, this time it carried more weight than ever. Not just warning, not just code, but something deeper. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to understand. He needed to understand. The wind howled across the ruins, carrying the faint growls of the approaching creatures. Daniel and the alien girl moved quickly down the ridge, keeping low as the army advanced. Every step echoed with the weight of what was coming: war, destruction, and perhaps the end of everything he knew. Yet, even with fear pressing down on him, Daniel felt something else. The bond between them, the strange trust that grew with every whisper of her word. They reached a shattered bridge that crossed a dried riverbed. Daniel stopped, scanning the horizon for any sign of his base. His radio crackled faintly, but the signal was weak. He cursed under his breath, frustration gnawing at him. If he failed to send a warning, his people would be caught unprepared. The alien girl stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, her glowing eyes steady. "A grrr," she whispered again, this time looking directly into his eyes. Daniel's voice shook. "What does it mean? Please, I need to know." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she took his hand, guiding it gently to her chest, where her heart beat steadily beneath glowing skin. Her lips parted, and once more, the sound came, soft but filled with meaning. A grrr. Daniel's breath caught. He realized now it was not only a warning, not only a signal. It was her word for connection, for bond, for trust, and maybe, just maybe, it meant something even greater. The ground trembled violently, the enemy closing in. Daniel pulled his hand back and looked around, panic rising, but she stood tall, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She raised her voice for the first time, shouting the word loud into the valley. "AGRRR." The sound echoed through the ruins like a bell. The red-eyed creatures paused, their march stuttering, their glowing eyes turning toward her. Daniel's heart froze. What had she done? The girl turned to him, her expression calm yet filled with sadness. She stepped closer, placing both her hands on his chest. Her voice was soft again, almost breaking. "A grrr." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. "You're not just warning me, are you?" he whispered. Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time, he saw tears glowing in the corners. She leaned forward, her forehead pressing lightly against his, and he finally understood. The word was not only about danger, not only about survival. It was her people's deepest word, one that meant many things depending on how it was spoken. But here, now, in her trembling voice, it meant love. Daniel's chest ached as the truth struck him. The alien girl, in the middle of a battlefield, in the shadow of an invasion, had given him her heart. The silence between them was broken by the roar of machines. The carriers rolled closer, the army spreading out, weapons glowing. Daniel wiped the dust from his face, lifting his weapon again. He glanced at her, her glowing eyes locked on his. "You've risked everything to stay with me," he whispered. She nodded once, her silver blue hair glowing faintly in the smoke-filled light. Her lips parted one last time. A grrr. The sound was no longer a mystery. It was her warning, her bond, her trust, her love, all carried in a single sound. Daniel's fear melted into determination. He would fight, not only for his people, but for her, for what they had built in the middle of chaos. As the first wave of the army charged across the valley, Daniel and the alien girl stood side by side, their breaths steady, their bond unshakable. The night lit up with fire and smoke, the ground shaking with the weight of war. But even as the enemy closed in, Daniel's heart was calm, because he finally understood her, and with every whisper of her word, he found strength he never knew he had. Her voice carried one last time through the battlefield, soft yet powerful. A grrr. Daniel raised his weapon, his spirit unbroken. The final revelation was clear. Her strange sound had never been meaningless. It had always been the language of survival, of trust, and of love, and together they would face the storm.